welcome to this bonus episode of Shine On Policycast, where we share 5 numbers in 5 minutes or less to update you about the solar market in Europe. I'm Bethany, and today I'm joined by Christophe Lits, one of our market analysts here at SolarPower Europe. So hi, Christophe.
Hi, hello, Bethany.
So just in December, we launched our annual EU solar market outlook for 2024 all the way through to 2028. And Christophe, you're here today to talk us through some of those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lovely yellow hourglass, and I'm going to flip it to start the timer for 5 minutes, and then you gotta give us 5 numbers. So off you go.
So, let's go. Yeah. So thank you for the invitation to the podcast. But I think the first key number is like how much have we installed actually last year in 2024. And it's 66 gigawatt of solar PV was installed in the EU in 2024. So what does that mean, really, 66 gigawatts? So to represent it more visually, it can generate the electricity consumption of roughly 20 million houses in the EU. So of course it's not a one-to-one relationship, but that's globally the amount. So it can generate electricity that's consumed for 20 million houses. And what does 66 gigawatt means compared to the previous year? So is it a good year or a bad year? So technically it's the all-time record. So technically it's a good news. So last year was 60 gigawatts. But if we look a bit at the broader spectrum, it's actually not that so great. Not that great at all. If you look a couple of years ago, we're at 30 gigawatts. Then we jumped to 40, then to 60, and then to 62. So we said the margin by how much we grew last year is really minus. So it's just 2 gigawatt extra and just 4% growth from one year to another. So it's the all-time record, but we see really a slowdown in the market expansion on a year-to-year basis. And that actually reflects my second number. So it's actually like minus 13% in annual investment towards solar PV throughout the year. And that reflection is actually quite important because we noticed that it's the first time we have decoupling between the amount of PV we installed and the investment, which are actually going down. And it's a bit worrying because if we are thinking a bit couple of months backwards, towards the end of 2023 or mid 2023, compared to 2024, the price of PV system and solar panels in general have dropped by 2, probably, so by a factor of 2. So it's much cheaper to buy now, so that could explain why we spend less. But at the same time, with the solar module being much cheaper, we should have been able to invest much more into that and to actually deploy more. So that's really the first time we see a decoupling in investment that's going toward PV, and that is quite worrying for the future in general. Seeing you look at the time, so I'm looking at the time. So yeah, that's the first 2 number what it means. So 66 gigawatts, an all-time record, but not that much growth, which is reflected into the 13% investment decrease in actually investment towards solar PV in the EU. So that's a bit the scene for how 2024 looked like. And if you go a bit more in detail about what kind of installation we had during the year, that's my third number. So that's 42% of the annual installation. So the new PV that were deployed during 2024 were utility scale PV. So ground mounted PV and farm on the ground compared to rooftop PV that we also have. And this difference actually explained by a couple of points. Mainly, the electricity price is roughly over, especially during 2024. We didn't have so much high price that we knew during the crisis. So the household didn't have the need or didn't face the same desire to protect themselves for that those high electricity price. So in general, households and rooftop market have decreased quite a lot, and at the same time, because the price of panels and solar module were cheaper, it was more interesting for developers to buy and to construct project because it was cheaper. So on overall, we had a bit of a shift towards more utility scale compared to rooftop compared to the previous year what we had. So still pretty important to remember that 42% is an average throughout the EU, and each market is very different from another. We have some markets when, such as Spain, for example, when utility scale and ground-mounted PV are much larger than the rooftop, and then some markets when we have exactly the opposite. I'm looking at the time still.
It's getting a bit tight.
And so that's a bit the 2024 situation. Now if we're looking a bit more in the future, so what we're expecting. So we had 66 gigawatts installed 2024. We're expecting the market to go to about 82 gigawatts in 2028. Compared to a previous forecast, it's a bit a lowering of our numbers, and we're expecting roughly between 3 to 7% growth every year until 2028. That's quite a difference compared to the 40-50% growth we experienced in the past 3-4 years. And the main reason for that decrease is actually that we have a lot of challenges that we had are still present. So we have a lack of flexibility. So that means storage capacity, grid infrastructure, demand response. All those mechanisms are actually missing quite a lot, and we're seeing those becoming a more urgent issue. Permitting remains pretty slow. I'm coming to an end. Permitting is getting pretty slow. We still have some issue actually.
We're almost at 5.
I'll accelerate now. So we have a bit of issue with like the electrification of the EU in general. It's a bit too slow. So the mobility, the heavy industry are not electrified fast enough, and those general issues lowered the pace of deployment for PV. And then my last number, which actually goes pretty quick, like how much do we expect to have in total by 2030? We're expecting 818 gigawatts. That's a bit lower compared to the 900 we were expecting last year by 2030. We're still above the target of REPower EU, but those challenges are becoming like bigger and bigger. And now this year, actually, our low scenario is missing the target of REPower EU by about 100 gigawatts. So REPower EU is aiming for 750. Our low scenario is going to 650, and the medium scenario, is 820 gigawatt roughly. So we're still on track to meet REPower EU, but it's really not something to consider it achieved.
We can't take it for granted.
No, exactly. And the more we progress toward in time, the bigger those challenges are getting, and the lower our forecast is getting also. So that's it. 2024 was a good year, but disappointing in terms of growth, and it shows some concerning development for the futures.
Towards 2030. So we saw, just to recap, we saw 66 gigawatts of new solar in 2024 in the EU, which is only slightly greater than what we installed in 2023. We saw minus 13% in solar investment. So actually the first time we saw a decline in how much people were investing in solar. About 42% of new PV installed in 2024 was ground mounted, so different from rooftop. We're expecting 82 gigawatts in 2028. And by 2030, we're expecting 818 gigawatts by 2030. But for the first time, our low scenario actually takes us off course. And now we're talking about the real possibility that we might not meet our targets.
Yes.
So thanks, Christophe, for sharing those important numbers. And if you went over time, I think it's well justified because the numbers are important and tell a crucial story. So you can find all these numbers and more in our EU Market Outlook, which is on our website at solarpowereurope.org. And thanks, Christophe, for your insights today.
Thank you. You're welcome.